Congressman Barbara Lee has been in the House for some time. She's well into her 70s at this point. Now she's one of the candidates running in that jungle primary for U.S. Senate to replace the dearly departed Di-Fi. That would include Katie Porter, Adam Schiff, Steve Garvey.
Yes, the Republican candidate, Steve Garvey.
Here's Barbara Lee in a recent candidate debate.
That was brilliant.
Being asked about a proposal that she advanced, and she's happy to explain it.
You're calling for a $50 an hour federal minimum wage. That's 7 times the current national minimum wage of $7.25 an hour. Can you explain how that would be economically sustainable for small businesses? You have 60 seconds.
First, let me say I owned and ran a small business for 11 years. I created hundreds of jobs, benefits, retirement benefits, also health care benefits. I know what worker productivity means, and that means that you have to make sure that your employees are taken care of and have a living wage. In the Bay Area, I believe it was the United Way, came out with a report that very recently, $127,000 for a family of 4 is just barely enough to get by. Another survey very recently, $104,000 for a family of 1, barely enough to get by. Low income because of the affordability crisis. And so just do the math. Just do the math. Of course, we have national minimum wages that we need to raise to a living wage. You're talking about $20, $25, fine. But I have got to be focused on what California needs and what the affordability factor is when we calculate this wage.
Dinner bell. Yeah. Steve Moore is an economist, Govzilla author. Steve, it's just simple math. If you need somebody to make $100,000, then you just mandate a $50 an hour minimum wage. It's what we've always talked about when they proposed raising it. Why not make it 50? Why not make 100? Barbara Lee's taking us up on that.
Yeah, who knew that Barbara Lee was listening to us when we used to mock this idea of a $50 minimum wage? She took it seriously. So do the math here, since we're going to do math today. So if you're working 40 hours a week for 50 weeks a year, you're working, 2,000 hours, and times 50, that's 100,000. Gosh,
yeah,
every American will earn $100,000. And I mean, come on, that's a great deal for people. Of course, it will bankrupt every small business in America. There won't be any jobs left, but everybody with a job will have $100,000 a year job. Of course, this is so economics 100. I don't want to insult your listeners, but the fact is, okay, what about somebody who, maybe isn't able to produce enough for $50 an hour? Well, okay, what happens to them? Oh, well, they get fired. So now the people who are hurt the most by this, I mean, this is so obvious, are the lowest skilled workers, because they're the ones who are thrown out of jobs under Barbara Lee's very generous proposal.
No high schoolers would ever flip burgers again because the college students would drop out of college, work at the burger joint, find a hot chick that works in the cashier station next to you, marry her, you guys instantly have $200,000. It's brilliant, right?
The people have been complaining about the $18 Big Mac meal now because of Biden inflation. Can you imagine how much a Big Mac would cost?
It'll be $40.
They had to pay $50.
Yeah, but you're making $50 an hour at least, so you can afford the $40 Big Mac. I mean, it's just this endless arms race between government setting wages by fiat, government setting prices by fiat, and then Biden will come in and say McDonald's and Burger King are examples of corporate greed. There's shrinkflation going on with the Whopper. Yeah, and then you just jawbone it, and then this just goes on in perpetuity. Of course. By the way, I'd love to see I'd love to get the details on that business that Barbara Lee ran too.
Right. I mean, she should know of anybody.
Yeah, I'd love to get details on that.
But one thing I just want to add to this, though, is that it is true. The costs of San Francisco are outrageous. I mean, it's unbelievable how expensive everything is in San Francisco. Gee, why is that? Maybe it's because they regulate everything in San Francisco. There's no housing. Everything is expensive. Why don't they look under the hood and see what they're doing in that city, which is, by the way, the most progressive city in America, and they've got, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants there. They're paying those bills. Gee, I wonder why everything's so expensive.
So yesterday, the street got shocked a little bit because inflation running hotter than anticipated.
Yeah.
Core CPI, which excludes food and energy, annualized rate of 3.9%. Super core CPI, excluding food, energy, and costs, 6%. And that's on top of food, energy, and shelter that are still up at least 25% from 4 years ago. So Jay Powell hasn't quite stuck the landing yet. What happens next?
He hasn't stuck the landing. He's one of the most overrated people. Time Magazine wanted to make him their man of the year, but then they had to, they couldn't pass by Taylor Swift. But if it hadn't been Taylor Swift, it probably would have been Jerome Powell. Because they think he did stick the landing, but he didn't. And, let's face it. I mean, this is a guy who's been, and I talked to Trump last week about Powell. I asked him, would you reappoint Jerome Powell? And thank God he said no, because I think Powell's been a disaster. I mean, when Trump left office, the inflation rate was 1.5%. 18 months later, thanks to Biden and Powell, we're at 9.1%. And you made a very important point just there a second ago, that the total increase in prices of everything officially is about 18.2% since Biden came into office. But if you look at the things people have to buy, like you just said, mortgage, what you pay for your groceries, what you pay for your gas, what you pay for your utility bill.
Home and car insurance, don't forget about that.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
went way up.
Yeah, that went way up, and as we've talked about so many times, Cocoa Krispies are now $8.50 a box. So people are facing really 25 to 30% inflation, and then Biden's doing this little dance and jig in Washington about how well he's handled the economy. And by the way, I just have to say, did you see his shrinkflation video?
Right, yeah, the pre Super Bowl ad. Yeah,
right. So if
exactly.
if the economy is so good, why did he do a Super Bowl commercial saying cookies and ice cream cost so much?
Exactly. And you know what? This is a little side note. Do you know how many takes he had to do?
How? No. This is so inside baseball. But
nailed it on the first take.
He had to do it 15 times.
15?
So 15 times before he finally got it. And even he still slurred the words. But my
was
point
it really him, or was that a stunt double?
AI.
But here's the thing. Look, what he said was right. I am addicted to Doritos. Okay, I have to confess that is my addiction, and so I buy those bags of Doritos all the time. And I swear he's right. I used to get about 24 chips in a bag, and now I'm getting about 20 chips in the bag.
Yep.
And so he's saying, "Oh, these criminal." Remember when he when he blamed the gas stations for the high gas prices?
Yeah, exactly. That's what this is. Yeah, right.
Well, but I want to
round and round.
The reason that Doritos is putting fewer chips in the bag is not because they're at one of these greedy corporations. It's because their costs are higher, and they're trying to disguise the higher costs by putting fewer. So per chip, you're paying probably about 14% inflation for Doritos.
No, right. You can either raise the price or you lower the amount because of the production costs. I mean, it's not that complicated, but it's a conspiracy by Big Grocery and Big Chip and every other Big Candy, Big Ice Cream. Yeah, I get it.
Big soda water.
But I mean, but in terms of what this means for Powell,
right.
He's going to have to, and this is, I guess, the street's reaction, although we'll see if it bounces back today. It seems pretty irrepressible, that he's going to have to put off maybe even the 3 rate cuts that were anticipated.
I don't see how he could do rate cuts right now because the inflation boogeyman has not been killed yet. It's not. There is inflation out there. There were a lot of really worrisome signs in that report that there's still inflationary pressures, especially in service costs. And so, no, I don't think they should be cutting rates right now. And that's one of the reasons that the stock market had a little bit of a hissy fit yesterday. Because, look, the Wall Street loves cheap money, Dan. They love cheap money. Just keep flushing into the economy. Mm-hmm. But this is a good way to ruin an economy is by continuing to cheapen the dollar. So I think if I were Fed chairman, I would not cut rates right now.
Well, now that he knows Trump won't re-up him, he's probably going to cut rates. He's got to protect Biden.
Oh, I know. He's going to screw Trump. Yeah. He's going to screw Trump because Trump, look, Powell got it wrong when Trump was president. He raised rates when he should have been lowering them, lowered rates. And he really believes, as so many idiots on Wall Street do, that, in fact, there's a report by one of the major Wall Street firms saying, we think that prices are going to, what did they, oh, yeah, they said, the only way to stop prices from going up is to have a recession. Now, is that the dumbest thing you ever heard?
Yes.
I mean, if you have a recession, you're going to produce less products. If you produce less products, the prices are going to go up. They're not going to go down. I mean, there's so much bad economic thinking. I mean, we got to go back to Economic 100.
All right, here's another topic under the Econ 101 syllabus. New data from the IRS. In 2021, the top 1% of taxpayers paid 46% of all federal income taxes. That is a record high percentage for the top 1%. A record low 34% paid by the bottom 95%. So the top 1% paid a plurality, 46%. The bottom 35% paid, the bottom 95% paid only 34% of total tax receipts to the government. So
these are income taxes.
These are income taxes. Yeah. And so I guess obviously the obvious question is, despite the fact that the 1% paid an all-time record high on a percentage basis, when are the rich going to pay their fair share?
So, by the way, I'm not familiar with those latest. Did those numbers just come out? Because the last one I saw, the richest 1% were paying 41%. Are you saying it's up to 46% now?
In 2021, 45.8%, all-time record on a percentage basis. Yep.
Wow. So when are they going to start paying their share?
Exactly.
I mean,
exactly.
They should be paying 67. The top 1% should pay all the taxes. You know,
at least 100%, if not more. Yeah.
And Warren Buffett, and we got to get Jeff Bezos, and we got to get Elon Musk in a room, and they're going to pay all the taxes, okay? And then they're going to move to New Zealand, move to, Switzerland. I mean, this is a bad thing for so many reasons. The most important reason is that, look, everybody should pay some tax. And by the way, the bottom 50%, I don't know if you have those numbers in front of you, they pay, the last time I checked, like 4% of the taxes. So the United States of America has the most progressive tax system in the world. And I know people are going to be shocked by that because we're always told every day the rich aren't paying their fair share. There's no country in the world that depends more on the top 1% to pay the tax burden than the United States does.
Yeah, obviously the numbers bear that out. We just hit an all-time high thanks to Bidenomics. Steve,
by the way, just think of how much money we could get if we raised their tax rates back up to 90%. God, we wouldn't even have a budget deficit. You know, I mean, that's the way these people in Washington think.
We heard it. We heard it from Barbara Lee. I mean, you just wave wands and magic things happen. Steve Moore, economist and Govzilla author. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it.
Okay, guys, have a great week. Happy Valentine's Day, Amy.
Thank you. You too.
What? None for me?
No, Dan.
Not for you.
All right.
Maybe next year. And Stephen Moore joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer.
Your show keeps me alive during the week. There's nobody I'd rather listen to between 5 and 9 in the morning than you guys.
On AM 560, The Answer.
Balance of Nature's fruits and veggies supplements, changing the world one life at a time.
That's some good stuff, I'll tell you. It really works.
I'm just really pleased with your product. I've been using it now for 3